2 Samuel chapter 17, please. 2 Samuel chapter 17. Let me preface this by saying that sometimes you wonder, well, what's in the Old Testament for me? And some Christians spend a lot of time in the New Testament, which we should, and maybe a little bit, maybe in the book of Proverbs, but in the Old Testament, they're not that familiar with. And I want to say to you that the whole Bible is worth reading, amen? The entire Bible. And what's so interesting is when we read the Old Testament and read these stories of the names of individuals, what we think about is over the centuries, over the hundreds of years, God decided to put that little segment of a story of that person's life in the Bible, and it must be in there not just for us to, wow, look at that, but I wonder how that applies to me. The stories are something to illustrate to us something someone did in their life, whether right or wrong, and then how that impacts our life. And what we're supposed to do is assimilate certain things and put into practice certain things that we see, and then avoid certain things that we go and we see and we look in there and go, boy, I better not even get close to that. So the idea is the Old Testament is there for our ensample. And what we need to do is look at this and say everything God puts in here, we need to take a little time and think about. And I don't know how you've been, but over the few years that I've been reading the Bible, I'll read some story and I'll go, I'm not sure what that's about. And 10 years later, after rereading numerous times, it'll be, oh, now I know. Why? Because an experience has come up in my life where I go, well, there's no way I could have understood that 20 years ago or 10 years ago, but now with that experience, boy, does that make sense. So with that in mind, I want you to read something with me today, 2 Samuel chapter number 17. And David is getting ready to get out of a situation for a temporary period of time. And what he's going to avoid is a great conflict with two men. One is named Absalom, one of David's son. This son is bitter against David. There's reasons for that which we won't go into. The other man that he's trying to flee from is a man named Ahithophel. Ahithophel was on David's cabinet, if you would. He was one of David's closest advisors, and Ahithophel was also now bitter at David. And if you know anything about the Bible, bitterness, Absalom finds bitterness, Ahithophel, and they're getting ready to try to take David off of his throne, cast him out of his kingdom, but not only do they want to take him off his throne, they want to kill him. They're after him. They're his adversaries. And may I say, when former friends and confidants and people that we love turn into adversaries, it's a very difficult time. And David's in adversity, if you would. And then David is told this. Look at verse 21. 2 Samuel 17, verse 21. It came to pass after they were departed that they came up out of the well and went and told David and said unto David, Arise, pass quickly over the water. The water is the river Jordan. Get on the other side of the river, for thus hath Ahithophel counseled against you. What this person is informing David about, you've got to get away right now, because they're going to be after you, and their plans are to not just dethrone you, but kill you. Then David arose, verse 22, and all the people that were with him, and they passed over Jordan by the morning light. There lacked not one of them that was not gone over Jordan. Would you notice that David had people with him? There was more than one. There were many people that were with David passing over with him. Notice, if you would, verse 24. Then David came to Mahanaim. So David and all these people that were with David, many of them, they cross over the river Jordan, and now they're in Mahanaim, and something interesting happens there. Look at verse number 27 and follow this closely if you would. And it came to pass when David was come to Mahanaim, that Shobai, the son of Nahash of Rabbah, of the children of Ammon, and Makir, the son of Ameliel of Lodabar, and Barzillia, the Gileadites of Rogelim, And when you read those names, it's like, oh, gee, why couldn't it be Peter, James, and John, you know? Why does it have to be Shobi or Shobai and Maker and Barzillia? You know, these names are foreign to us. Well, you know, it takes a little studying and getting familiar with them. I've never met them. I don't know them. Shobi is only really mentioned once in the Bible. Maker is a man that lived down in Lodabar, and in fact, he was the one that took care of Jonathan's son all those years, whose name was Mephibosheth. I want you to focus in on one man as an example to us today, Barzillia. And I may have that just not pronounced, but, you know, Barzillia is not the name that comes up that you think about naming your son today. Barzillia, the Gileadite, from Rogelim. And notice what these three do. In David's adversity, they exemplify friendship. In David's series of events where he's being chased, people are with him, David can't supply for these people, these men bring to him that which would lift up his spirit, and they bring some provisions to him in an act of brotherhood. Why do you say that? A friend loveth, how often? At all times. And a brother is born for adversity. Proverbs 17. And so they exemplify brotherhood. And notice what they do in verse 28. They brought beds. Now, understand something. In those days, we're not talking about a queen-size mattress here. You know, a lot of them were mobile, and they brought these beds, probably rolled up mats, if you would, basins, earthen vessels, wheat, barley, flour, parched corn, beans, lentils, parched pulse. Now you say, that's not what I'm having for lunch. The point of it is there was a lot of people there, and somebody went out of their way to organize, I'm going to say this, semi-trailers full of goods that were necessary to bring to David and those that were following him that which would lift them up, that which would help. Notice they brought honey and butter. Now we're talking. Sheep, cheese of kine for David, and for the people that were with him to eat, for they said, the people is hungry and weary and thirsty in the wilderness. They're fleeing. There's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of tensions going on. But also there's a need for human things, if you would, that they need to comfort them so they can move on. And these three men come to David in his time of need and lift him up by bringing supplies that they're able to organize together and bring to this people. May I ask you something? Have you ever had somebody bring something to you and you go, wow, that was needed. They'll never know how much I appreciate that. One time, my wife and I over in Samoa, we were not very well off at that time. I didn't know that a wife needed things like money must buy. I just didn't know. I thought, beans and rice and a poncho liner would be enough, And one day, a missionary that we knew just for a couple months brought 2 bags of groceries that meant more to us than he knew. It was just one of those for such a time. Have you ever had somebody show up with something? You say, well, not groceries, but with something for such a time as this. Sometimes it's a word fitly spoken. Sometimes it may be something physical. Sometimes it's, hey, I don't know, God laid you on my heart and I've really been praying for you, and you go, thank you. So it may be anything, but it's something that shows this kindness and shows friendship and shows brotherhood, if you would, and shows a camaraderie. And these show up with these goods, if you would, and if that were the end of the story, we would go, well, that's something we should be doing. We should be supplying once in a while as God leads us, but it goes on a little further, and God highlights Barzillia. Look at chapter 19. Chapter number 19, just a couple chapters over, please. David has crossed over the river Jordan to flee to escape the potentiality of his death and dethronement. And now he's coming back, and he's coming back across the Jordan again back towards his kingdom. And notice verse number 31, please. Verse number 31 of chapter 19. Barzillia, the Gileadite, came down from Rogelim, went over Jordan with the king to conduct him over Jordan. Now it says this, and notice God put something in here. Now Barzillia was a very aged man. Now take note of that. When you read that kind of stuff, you have to say, okay, God's going to take a minute and tell us something about this man that evidently is needful for us to know. He's a very aged man, even 80 years old. He's 80 years old. And he had provided the king of subsistence while he lay at Mahanaim, for he was a very great man. Well, what the king says to Barzillia is, verse 33, Come thou over with me, and I will feed thee with me in Jerusalem. Come back with me to the king. Come back with me to the kingdom. Come back to me, and I'll take care of you. But Barzillia says in verse number 34, How long have I to live, that I should go up with the king into Jerusalem? I am this day 80 years old. I'm 80 years old. And can I discern between good and evil? Can thy servant, speaking about himself in the third person, can I taste what I eat or what I drink? Can I hear any more the voice of singing men and singing women? Wherefore then should thy servant, me, he's talking about himself, be yet a burden unto my lord the king? You know what he says? I'm happy here. I'm comfortable here. I'm 80 years old. You know, all the singing and the food and all that stuff. You know what? That's all well and good. What I'm saying to you this morning is Barzillai did not help David to get something back from him. What do you mean? It was a one-way deal. Barzillai brought things to David and all his servants, to all his people in sacrifice, but he didn't do it to be recompensed. He didn't do it like, what's in it for me? You know what he said? Look, I'm old enough now, and none of that stuff really matters to me anymore. Thank you for the offer, but he turns it down, if you would. And what he says is, verse 37, look at verse 37, Let thy servant, I pray thee, turn back again, that I may die in mine own city. I don't want to move. I don't want to go with you. Thank you for the offer, but I just want to stay right where I'm at and be buried by the grave of my father and my mother. You know what Barzillai said? I'm contented with what I have. I don't need anything paid back. You know, it's good to do things for people and not expect something in return. And it's a little principle, but like if we can get past and get into true charity where I do it not to be seen. We do it not to get anything back. And may I say that Barzillai did this for him, not expecting anything. He said, thank you for the offer, but I want to, you know, at 80 years old, you're comfortable in your house. I want to stay here. It's my city. I'm just going to die here. Everything's fine. But then God put something else in there, and look at it real quick. He said, verse 37, again, Let thy servant, I pray thee, turn back again, and that I may die in mine own city, and be buried by the grave of my father and my mother. But behold, thy servant Chimham, Chimham. Watch it carefully, because you won't see him again in the Bible. Chimham. Let him go over with my lord the king, and do to him what shall seem good unto thee. And the king answered, Chimham shall go over with me, and I will do to him that which shall seem good unto thee, and whatsoever thou shalt require of me, all will I do for thee. And all the people went over Jordan. And when the king was come over, the king kissed Barzillai and blessed him. And he returned unto his own place. Then the king went on to Gilgal, and Chimham went on with him. You say, who in the world is Chimham? You know what's interesting? We don't know. All we know is he's a servant, and Barzillai, speaking in the third person, says, thy servant Chimham. Brethren, it's a good possibility that Chimham was one of Barzillai's servants, and I don't know about the speculation, but my mind goes and says, I wonder who he is. Well, when you look him up, there's a guy's name like that in Jeremiah, but it's not the same one. And God just decided to put him in there. And you know what's interesting? We don't even know what he does. We don't even, it's left to our own speculation. Who is this guy? And Barzillia says, why don't you take Chittim? Now, my mind's eye kind of looks at it in a way that I think, oh, this is great. Somebody that we don't know, and we don't even know what they've done, but God knows their name, and God puts them in there. And may I say, that person gets the blessings of what Barzillia could have got, but Barzillia says, give it to him. Who knows? Maybe Chittim was the one that organized all this. We don't know. Maybe he was a servant that for years have served beside Barzillia. Maybe he was the one that Barzillia said, go organize this for me. We're getting ready to go out and help David. We don't know who he is. We don't know what he's done. But all we know is he gets to go over and live with the king in a special way. For doing what? We don't know. You say, why is that so important? Everybody is important. To God, everybody is important. And everything everybody does, whether it's seen or not, is important. We don't know what he does. We don't really know who he is. All we know is Barzillia, and I'm thinking he must have served Barzillia in a special way. That Barzillia would mention him and said, take him in. Maybe this was just a loyal servant that was just faithful behind the scenes for years. Now you say, preacher, I'm having a little tough time today. I'm trying to think how this applies to my life. Because you said stories in the Bible apply to our lives. Well, look, I'm thinking along these lines. Next Sunday, I hope you come back to church next Sunday morning. Next Sunday morning, we'll start to have visitors coming in that are coming to a conference. And you'll see some pastors and pastors' wives and people from churches starting to come in for the conference. They're going to get away maybe a couple days early, and they'll be in church Sunday morning and here Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and they're coming to hear some preaching and get refreshed. You know, we get the opportunity to serve some coming in that are in adversity. What do you mean? We don't know which side of the river they're on. We don't know what the event is that they're having going on at their church. But some of us who know some of them know that there are things happening in their areas right now where they could use a little lifting up, where they could use a little comforting, where they could use a bed and a basin and some sheep and some cheese and just something that refreshes them a little bit. Are you still with me? But what they really need is the Word of God and some hospitality and some friendship and an encouraging word and something from the Word of God. But while they're here, we get to serve them a little bit. You know what's interesting? I wonder if God watches us, what we're doing with this opportunity He gives us. And I wonder if in our church somewhere there's a Chittim. What do you mean? Oh, somebody that's just been working, doing things, praying. You say, I can't get down and do physical work as much. Praying, giving a little bit, involved in a few things, preparing a few things, whatever capacity it's in. Ladies' prayer meeting next Saturday, teens' prayer meeting, praying for the meeting a little bit. Something that encourages those that are coming in some way, shape, or form. But it seems like nobody notices you. Chittim didn't go to Barzillia and say, you don't want to go? I'll go. Chittim just doing the work that he was supposed to be doing, and Barzillia said, no, I'm a little too old. I'm going to stay back here where my father's heritage is, gravesite's back here. I'm 80 years old. I wouldn't appreciate, the singing and the mirth and the food and everything. I'm content. But take this servant. May I say to you, God notices. God notices what people do, whether other people notice or not. God recognizes and notices what people do, whether we stand up and give accolades or not. God takes note of those who just quietly do work behind the scenes, not expecting anything. And once in a while, God says, now let me do something for you. You did that, whatever it was, and we don't know what it is. We don't know who he is. We don't know his prominence. We don't know anything about that. All we know is God put him in the Bible and made his name come across two times in there, 3 times in there, and it must have been important enough that he made the book of all books. And there must be a lesson in there. There must be something in there for us that says, you know, let's just do our work and not worry about whether we're called to go with the king or not. Let's just do it as unto the Lord. Let's just do it expecting nothing in return. Let's be a part of the team that Chinham, if you would, was part of Barzillia's team that went out to be a brother born for adversity. He went out to comfort a little bit. He went out possibly to organize it. I don't know. But may I say to you, even if we're in support, what we're doing is important. Don't think the most important thing to do is stand up here and preach. It is one thing to do, but what others do is important too. I'm going to say that again. Somebody says, well, boy, the most important thing is what's going on up here. It is not. Everything that we do, whatever our hands finds us to do, we're to do it with all our might. Somebody's in the nurseries today taking care of babies while we're in here. It's an important thing to do. I got a couple of grandchildren down there. I'm going to tell you it's an important thing to do. A couple of guys are walking around with yellow jackets on, security. That's important. Somebody's out doing something right now that nobody sees. It's just a Chinham. Somebody will be moving chairs around. Somebody will be preparing some food. Somebody will be praying. Somebody will be doing this. Somebody will be doing that. And what I'm saying is, it's our opportunity to bless leaders who have followers. And David was a leader who had followers, and somebody showed up when they were hungry and thirsty and needed something and encouraged them. You say, brother, you're making a big deal out of this. You know, it's not me making a big deal out of it. The Bible is. Well, okay, but you're speculating. But look at the rest of the story. Look at 1 Kings chapter 2. 1 Kings chapter number 2. I'm watching your time carefully. 1 Kings chapter number 2. And this will be kind of the rest of this situation. 1 Kings chapter number 2. And look at verse number 1. Verse number 1. Now the days of David drew nigh that he should die. So David's getting now ready to die. He calls Solomon in, his son, who's going to be the future king. And he charged Solomon, his son, saying, I go the way of all the earth. Be thou strong, therefore, and show thyself a man. He goes on to give him a charge to walk with God, and then David starts telling the future king some things that he must do. Now, if these were the last things that you were going to say to someone that were going to take over, you would agree that everything said is really important. Look at verse 7, what David tells Solomon to do. Verse 7, but show kindness unto the sons of Barzillia the Gileadite, and let them be of those that eat at thy table. For so they came to me when I fled because of Absalom thy brother. It's one little paragraph, but God puts it in there. And when David's getting ready to die, everything that he said is so important. And one of the things he said to Solomon is, I want you to do something. I want you to find the sons of Barzillia, the Gileadites. And I want you to bring them to the king's table. And I want you to treat them like they're your sons. Why? Because when I was in adversity, he showed up. And he brought a few things, that I really needed. You see, to David, this was more important than how I'm depicting it. Because in that day, he said to Barzillia, come over, come over. And he really wanted to repay Barzillia. And Barzillia said, I'm 80 years old. I'm good. Everything's fine. I don't need to be over there with all that. I like it right here. Take my servant. He deferred to someone else. But now Barzillai is dead. And David, whom he helped, is dying. And David says to Solomon, one other thing I want you to do is I want you to bring the sons of Barzillai. And I want you to bring them, and I want them eating at your table as one of the king's sons. That means they were going to live in the palace. That means they were going to wear certain depictions of who they are and that they were honorary members of the royal family. That means that those boys were going to be highly taken care of. Why? Because a long time ago, their daddy decided to follow a scripture. What was that? A friend loveth at all times. You know what Barzillai wasn't worried about? He wasn't worried about that Absalom and part of the kingdom and Ahithophel were against David. This wasn't a matter of politics, it was a matter of friendship. Well, if I help that person, what will somebody else think? Barzillai was more in, I'm out to help David because that's what I'm supposed to do. Are you still with me? And the idea was this, please listen to me. Barzillai did something that David remembered. And Barzillai is dead, but you know who benefited? Some sons. And oh, by the way, not just those sons, but those sons would have offspring. Barzillai's family would be benefited, and God decided to put it as a verse in the Bible. You never know what we do over the next few weeks might affect something in our next generations to come. Oh, come on, preacher, you're making something up. No. According to the Bible, God looks at the things that are going on in the earth and follows principles. Well, that's all Old Testament. All right, one in the New Testament, and we'll say, God bless you. Look at Galatians. Galatians 6. Galatians 6. Please turn there. Last one. Galatians 6. You know, opportunities come along. And please, 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 brethren, let's not miss opportunities to fulfill Scriptures. Here's the New Testament version of maybe what just happened. Galatians chapter 6, verse number 9. Verse number 9. And let us not be weary in well-doing. For in due season we shall reap if we faint not. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto who? Say it. All men. Say it again. Let us do good unto who? All men. Especially unto them who are of the household of faith. If we have an opportunity, we're supposed to do good. But he says, let me put a little emphasis, especially do good to your brothers. Do good to your friends. Do good to your fellow saints. Do good to those fellow citizens. Do good to those saints that are part of the household of God. Do good to all men, but especially when you get an opportunity, make sure you take care of God's people. Well, why? What's in it for me? Bad attitude. What do you mean, what's in it for me? Barzillai said, I didn't come here for what's in it for me. I didn't come here worried about Absalom and worried about Ahithophel and worried about all those that are against David. I came here to help a friend. I came here to supply not only for him, but for some people with him. I came here to encourage those that were with him that were hungry, those that were thirsty, those that had a little help for some need. And when he came to me, I'm 80 years old. I don't need anything. I'm good. I'm contented. I don't want to go. Take Chinham with you. We don't even know what he did. But years later, on David's deathbed, so to speak, David said, Solomon, here's a list of things I want you to do, and I only read one of them. And Barzillai's sons, bring them. Set them at your table. Take care of them. because he was there for me in adversity. Now, please, God takes notes on the opportunities we have. This is not a guilt trip. This is, let's not miss it. This is not a guilt trip to our church. This is, hey, as we have opportunity, here's an opportunity. Let's not miss it. Let's not miss showing ourselves friendly. Let's not miss showing kindness. Let's not miss somebody says, gee, they're asking for an offering. It's not for us. It's to help somebody. It's to lift somebody up. It's to bless somebody. And if we can encourage the encourager, then they can go back and bless their people. They're asking me to pray. It's an opportunity. They're asking for work parties. It's an opportunity. Not only do we come and get fed, we hope you come to the services and hear the preaching, but may I say to you, it's an opportunity to do good to those of the household of faith. I hope you'll look at this in the right way. And by the way, Chinham, if you're out there, even though nobody knows what you do and nobody said thank you and you didn't work recognized, God knows your name. Trust that God will take care of it.